What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor season 44, episode 9. We're almost through this season. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and in this episode, Ratu continues losing. And just, I always love some sweet, sweet comeuppance when they're like, oh, we're gonna win this thing, and then they do not. So,
Sort of funny, Kane prophesied saying last week, oh, it's Ratu's game to lose. Now two Ratu get voted out, which is a big oop. And then we have Jam Jam being the godfather, just taking out all of his targets one-on-one. So basically, Kane cursed everyone, and Jam Jam is getting everyone out.
yeah, I thought it was funny. Jam Jam was like, you know who wrote my name down? Well, all of them are gone now. So I think it's interesting to think about that in terms of like Jam Jam's winner chances. Like, is being the Godfather going to be what gets him to the end of the game, or is being the Godfather going to be what gets him sniped before the end of the game?
Yeah, I thought this episode was fun though. It was a chill day. They had an off day, one of the very few off days that we get now in a 26-day season of Survivor. So it was fun though. We got to see more camp life this episode. I feel like we got to see more confessionals. Like it was a more well rounded episode. I felt like we were seeing different people, more people, and they finally got some rice. They got food, which led to more strategizing, which made the episode more fun and interesting. So it's like, okay, why are we starving these people? We've said this many times before. Just give them rice, give them regular food so they can strategize and have enough brain power, mental energy to be able to strategize.
It's so weird because it's like I want to make a thing about this being the hardest season ever, but then they do a bunch of stuff to not actually make it like strategically hard, just physically hard. And I think it's also like give them more opportunities to get food, but make it not all reward food. Like give them opportunities to like get more rice, or they had that one thing I think in 41 where they had a survivalist guy come and like show them where to get food like on their island, and like I
Mm-hmm.
think that's cool, where like make it so they have day to day increased quality of life, not just binging on rewards all the time.
Exactly. It's like, okay, if you want a good show, the people have to be able to produce and have to be able to think. If they're not getting enough food, all we're going to see is people lumping around, not really doing anything because they're so tired.
And I think also having most of the food come from reward challenges makes it more based on luck. Like who's going to be doing well in the game and who's not going to be doing well. Because, like, the difference between having a reward feast and having no food is bigger than the difference between having a reward feast and, like, having rice. Like, you would still rather have the reward feast, but the people who ate only rice are still going to be able to function.
Yes, we've got the kitty cat tail here. So we start off this episode with an idol hunt. And so Kane brings up Dungeons and Dragons again. I'm like, okay, take a shot every time Kane mentions Dungeons and Dragons in any episode, which is very interesting because it seems like the editors give each character like one thing about them that is interesting or fascinating. Like Franny and Matt's whole thing was the showmance. Kane's thing is Dungeons and Dragons. Carson's thing is the puzzles and NASA engineering. It's like, are these people 2D or 3D? Don't they have more than one thing you can share about them each episode?
Yeah, and I think it's weird because Kane's whole D&D reference this episode didn't really make sense. Like in D&D, it's all of the players against the person running the game. Like it's not all of the players against the strongest player. So really, if we wanted to go Kane's D&D metaphor, like it would be like D&D if they were all battling against Jeff Probst. So it was dumb.
So you play.
Yes. So
Oh, okay, okay. Love it.
yeah, but so I definitely agree that I feel like a lot of the characters are very two-dimensional. I feel like Carolyn is the only one who even like approaches having three dimensions, but even then, I feel like she's kind of like, "Oh, I'm weird and wacky, and also I was like addicted to drugs in the past." And so I like that we got to see Carolyn kind of bonding with people this episode just because we did see it the merge episode, like she wasn't sure if she would fit in or not. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to hear about Carolyn's story and her addiction and then recovery. I'm like, as we've always been saying, Carolyn's very great. She's very inspiring, and she is starting to be able to bond with the tribe, which is what we said, okay, at the merge when she felt outcasted, similar to when she was on OG tribes at the start, she felt outcasted, not being able to make inroads, feeling anxious, having to talk to so many people. So I'm like, good for her. We're seeing her strategy here. Like, okay, people are underestimating me. I'm just goofy. But like, if she pulls out this idol at the end, I think she could have like a good talking point at the end.
I think she could too. So I'm curious to see how this continues developing. I feel like Heidi is also a character we've kind of seen more of. But again, with Heidi, I'm not really sure what they're going for here. So
So with the idols, I like Danny's mindset here. Okay, he doesn't want to play scared. He and Heidi talked about that last week. Like, we need to make a move. Otherwise, we're just going to get pagonged off. There's no point to be like the last one standing and be the goat for everyone. So I liked his mindset here. Like, I'm going to look for idols. I don't really care who's watching. I'm just going to go look.
yeah, Danny's whole thing this episode was kind of weird because, like, I agree with him about, like, don't play scared, like, do the best you can. But then his whole thing, once they learned that there was a possibility that people could sit out from the challenge, he got really, like, intense about the fact that he didn't want anyone sitting out. And I was like, Danny, you don't get to make that decision for other people.
I feel like I sort of agreed with his mindset when we get to the immunity challenge. Like, I agreed sort of with what he was saying. But we also, with the idol, we see Jamie laughing, screaming about how she still has her idol. And she's so surprised that she still has this idol. And she wants to find the idol because she wants a second one. I was just like, LOL. I don't know. I wish she could have had the idol still so she could play the fake idol.
Yeah, I think it makes me a little upset because since the idol went home with Kane, no one is ever going to know that Jamie's idol was a fake idol, except for, I guess, there are people who are maybe figuring it out, but I don't think anyone specifically realized that Jamie's idol was fake. So that would have been so much fun. I love it when there's fake idols, but it seems like having fake idols is a non issue because they just keep going home with people.
Yeah, it's interesting because her idol really doesn't matter. Like, okay, Matthew hid the fake idol. Matthew gets medevacked from the game. Jamie's fake idol that Matthew hid is now gone because someone else gets voted out with it. Like, you know, really, there's not much storyline here, but I guess they're showing it to demonstrate how confident Jamie is. It's like Jamie's thing is this manifestation wand, similar to like Kane's Dungeons and Dragons. Every time Jamie's on screen, she's like the ding, ding, ding thing. And then it's like, oh, I'm manifesting. I have such good luck. So that's why they're showing her with this idol. And then it's sort of like, oh, egg in your face. You're not really like such good luck because this idol is fake, and then someone gets voted out with the idol.
Yeah. But
But
idol hunt was kind of where Heidi again kind of became an entity because she's the one who found the idol, and I was like, I still can't figure out what Heidi's deal is supposed to be. Like, is she supposed to be an important player or not?
I liked the music there when Heidi finds the idol because it sort of made it seem like Danny found it, and like the music intensity was rising and it kept cutting to different people searching. So I liked that like intensity there. But I'm like, okay, Heidi, don't mess this one up, please.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I would love a good idol play. Like when I guess after Danny's idol play, it's hard to be like, I would love an idol play that actually changes things because like that happened last week. But I always love good idol plays that, change the course of the game.
But with Jamie's fake idol, like other fake idols could have easily been edited out. Her idol could have been edited out. Like Brandon did hide that fake idol that he got from the birdcage, apparently, and Kane found it. Kane is like, oh yeah, this is fake or whatever. And then Kane rehides it. Didn't even see that entire storyline. So it is interesting that we're seeing like this Jamie idol storyline. Similarly, in like Omer's season, he had an idol nullifier. It's just never even shown on the season. So they easily could have just not shown Jamie's idol here.
Yeah, it gets kind of confusing, like why they do or do not show certain things. So
Going back to Jamie's whole manifestation thing, I guess that they're trying to like show I guess like show her negatively, like, oh, she's super confident, but we're, quote, laughing at her as the viewer, which is sort of odd.
yeah, I don't know. It feels very uneven. Like again, I kind of don't know what Jamie's deal is.
Yeah, so maybe it comes up if Jamie makes final tribal council. Jamie could easily just say she had a real idol this entire time because nobody can verify it. Like, literally, Sarah leaving with the idol thinking it was real. She didn't even know it was fake. Here, Kane is going to leave with what he thinks is potentially a real idol. Jamie thinks it's a real idol. So she makes it to the end. She could be like, yeah, I had this idol. Nobody can counter this claim that it was fake because the Matthew's gone. And really, maybe that goes into her manifestation thing. You can make whatever you want real if you just believe it enough.
Not sure that's how that works, but sure, we can go with that.
But right, you think like if she makes it to final tribal council, people have no reason to not believe it's a real idol. She could say, "Yeah, I had this idol for whatever 15 days and I it got voted out and I still managed to get to final tribal council."
I don't know. I feel like that's not a super strong like argument. Like my idol got voted out because I gave it to someone else because of an advantage that turned out to not be even a thing, you know?
Yeah, but I guess they could since they don't know that knowledge is power is not a thing, like, if you believe that it's in the game and you're strategizing around it, you could easily bring that up on, like, the outwit portion of the game, and, I feel like especially with winning games recently where you don't need to do too much, little things like this could add to your resume.
The thing is, I feel like she didn't outwit anyone. Like, if someone had played the knowledge is power and then Kane got home, got voted out, and Jamie's idol got voted out with Kane, that would be like, oh, I outwitted you. My idol went home, but you still didn't have it. But in this case, it's like she outwitted herself. Like, she tied herself into a knot, sent home what she thought was a real idol for no reason. Like, I think playing around advantages that doesn't exist can only count as like a positive if like you actually are successful, you know? So,
Mm, yeah, I guess so. I feel like I'd be a little opposite because if people believe knowledge is power is there, I think you can bring it up. And depending on how you word it and phrase it, you could spin it to make it sound better than what it is. Because I do agree, like, okay, she sort of flubbed herself by getting her idol voted out. But I think if you can spin it in a way that makes yourself look better, like it's all just storytelling. It's all how you make yourself sound good. And I think if you're smart enough, you could make this sound good.
yeah, I guess I am not really buying the idea that if you're smart enough, you can make it sound good. I think that there's no way to make this sound good, but agree to
So
disagree.
we get to the immunity challenge and they have to negotiate for rice. I like Danny saying here, it's like, okay, no nonsense. Like, okay, he's saying it's embarrassing to sit out for rice. I feel like that's what viewers do think sometimes when we get these things like, okay, why are you going to give up your chance for immunity and sit out for food or sit out for rice? You should play the game. So I get where Danny is coming from here.
I don't know. I think it's kind of difficult because Danny has been going on a lot of rewards, right? So it's kind of like the people who go on tons of rewards, it's more difficult for it's easier for them to say like, "Oh, we don't need rice. Like it's fine if we don't have rice," because it's like they're already like operating off enough calories. But like someone like Carson who, I don't think has gone on as many rewards as Danny has, and then also like had a stomach virus, so anything that he did have in his tank is already it's in the sands of Fiji. Like I think the idea that everyone's circumstances are the same is kind of dumb. It's like with the when they used to do I forget what it's called. The one where they had the rocks and like some people could choose to compete and some people could choose not to, blah 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 blah. I just think it's like if you're not going to win anyway and you're hungry, sit out and get the rice. Like I think the only person who this looks bad for is Kane, because he needed to play and didn't. But I think, again, that goes back to kind of Kane's overconfidence in the whole Ratu squad. So I think it's kind of like, I don't think that setting out for Rice is stupid, especially when, like, they made a point to show why Carson was thinking about sitting out for Rice. He was like, I fell asleep and I woke up more tired than before because I don't have any food left in my body. So, yeah, I think
Ah,
it's kind of judgmental to be like, we shouldn't sit out for Rice, especially because the people who did not sit out still get to benefit from having the Rice. Like, I'm sure Danny would be singing a whole different tune if the people who sat out for Rice were like, well, Danny, since you didn't want us to sit out, you're not going to get any Rice, you know?
they should have
So,
done that. I feel like if this situation were like, okay, you sit out, like variations we've seen of this sit out for food. I think it's worse here. Okay, you're sitting out and the food is for the entire tribe. So you're basically helping everyone. And maybe you should be selfish and you shouldn't want to help everyone because you're helping other people compete and win and think better compared to other challenges where if you sit out, okay, the length duration of this immunity challenge, you get to eat whatever the food is, pizza, spaghetti, you get to just gorge yourself and eat for the 10 minutes, 20 minutes that this challenge goes on. I think that is more worth it to sit out in because then you do that balance. Okay, do I think I'm going to win this challenge or not? If the answer is more so no, then I'm going to go sit out to eat in order to fuel myself. But this, I'm like, okay, you're trying to help everyone. Like, sure, I get it. Like, what you're saying, Carson would want food because he hasn't been eating and he's been throwing up everything. But like, I'm like, oh, I would not want to help everyone else get food. I would want it to be an individual thing where if I sit out, I get food and no one else does.
I think that's hard though, depending on the challenge, because like this challenge, I think lasted all of 5 minutes. So it's like, how much can you actually eat in 5 minutes? So yeah, I do like that variation, but I also think that, when they make a point to show us like, oh, they don't have any rice or anything, I don't mind this variation. So, especially because if they did do that thing where they brought the rice back and then were like, only the people who sat out got to get to have rice, people would call them jerks. So, yeah.
I feel like that would be an interesting variation of it. Instead of this, like, I don't think I'm a fan of these negotiations. Just do the regular one where, okay, if you sit out, you get to eat for the length of the challenge. But it's not a fun food like spaghetti or pizza. It's just rice, and you get to eat rice at the challenge for however long the challenge lasts. I think that could be funny. And it also gets this whole like, do you do it for yourself or do you do it for the team? Do you do it for like winning immunity or are you willing to risk winning immunity? Like, is Kane sitting out here $1 million mistake or was Kane never even going to win this challenge? So it doesn't really matter.
I think Kane sitting out here isn't $1 million mistake because even if he won this challenge, I don't think he's winning the game. So,
So we see the sit outs Lauren, Carson, Kane, and Heidi. Danny says, I won't vote for the sit outs to get voted out of the game. Scout's honor. Later on, funny, he says, oh, I'm not a scout. So basically, yeah, if you're sitting out, you're still fair game. It doesn't really mean anything to sit out. Like Lauren, Carson, Kane, Heidi, they're being nice for the tribe, but they're also doing it, I guess, for themselves to get the rice. But I feel like back in the day, maybe sitting out meant more than it does nowadays. Nowadays, sitting out really doesn't give you much brownie points. No one cares that you sat out for the good of the tribe. They're still going to vote you out tonight. I feel like on your survivor resume, if you're making it to final tribal council, saying you sat out for rice isn't necessarily a big thing to say.
yeah, I think part of it is like Danny kind of already showed that he wasn't big on the idea of sit outs, like sitting out. And so I think the sit out should have kind of known going into it that they weren't really going to be getting any brownie points because there was already at least one person who had vocalized the fact that they weren't a fan of sit outs. So,
Yeah, and, like, I guess I understand what Danny's saying, like, in the mantra of Survivor, you never want to sit out. So I support that, like, okay, yeah, this is a game everyone should be playing, but actually Danny should be wanting people to sit out. He should say, "Yeah, let's make it 6." It helps Danny's chances of winning, then maybe Danny would have won the challenge. He wants more people to sit out.
Yeah, I don't think he really thinks things through that far. So,
But we get Franny and Danny again at the end. If Danny pushed for more people to sit out, maybe Franny would have sat out. But Franny beats Danny. And so Franny beat Brandon. Franny beat Danny now. That's pretty cool. Like she is beating these, macho, big, muscular guys. But I feel like Franny, even Danny now, they can start to get targeted. Like the people that are the last people standing at these challenges might be like, oh, question mark, they're always the last two dueling it out. They're always the final three dueling it out. Maybe we should target them, especially now that Danny has successfully taken out two of the biggest dudes in the game. Like Brandon, very big, very tall. Kane is very tall. Danny's like the only big dude left.
yeah, I think it's interesting for Danny because Danny was kind of instrumental in getting Brandon going home. So it's kind of the opposite of the meat shield theory,
Yeah.
especially because I feel like when other people are talking about who big threats are, Danny's name comes up, but Franny's doesn't really. Like, Danny was a possibility to be voted out this episode. Franny, like, obviously, again, we're only shown what is edited, but, Franny's name didn't really come up. So I think it's interesting to see that Franny isn't really perceived as a threat, it seems like, even though she has now won back-to-back immunity challenges.
Yeah, I guess not back to back, but
Oh,
2,
right.
right? But then she
Yeah.
was saved last week from an idol, so that shows her social game, like, she's got a good resume building, right? Like and
Yeah,
it's
I
also
forgot last week existed for a minute, so
Yeah, it's like I think we said it last or maybe when Brandon got voted out, like, the consequences of Danny's actions with Danny and Brandon talking about the, like, bro alliance at that reward that Carolyn dislikes. So now Carolyn doesn't like Danny. It's like, okay, the consequences of your own actions. You were saying these big guys don't win the game, but then you're voting them all out. Like you were saying, the reverse meat shield strategy. I don't think that's going to work too well for Danny because now he's the biggest guy left.
yeah, it's weird because he's like, guys like us don't win this game, but then also he's shooting himself in the foot, I think, by making himself too big of a threat, and then also by like not having a great social game. Like, I think people stick with Danny because he had the idol, and so like the idol was power, and then kind of just, Danny was the one orchestrating the vote, and so it was just easier to go along. As long as it's not you, might as well vote out Keen, who's another big guy. So even if he's not one of the guys who I think was technically in the Bros Alliance, so
But I think it's like what we said last week. Tika and Soka here need to stick together this week and vote out one of the OG Ratu because even though it's 3-3-3, Ratu, they have their idol, their idol, and they have the extra vote, which everyone, maybe we haven't, idol's real here because people believe it to be so, which this worked completely well. We also see Ratu trading up their advantages in case of knowledge is power. So Lauren gives Jamie the extra vote. Jamie gives Kane the idol. And I think it would have been so funny if Kane, having the idol, then tried to flip it and get Jamie voted out in order to take the idol, like, Dwight and Jesse. But now just Kane leaving with the idol, it's more like just Dwight leaving with Janine's idol.
yeah, which was sad.
But if Kane did that kind of move where he gets the idol and then he tries to get Jamie voted out so he could keep the idol, that would have been so good.
Yeah, I feel like Kane, we haven't seen him as that much of a strategist, so
But we see also that Franny wants to get rid of Jam Jam or Carolyn here. She realizes, okay, these guys are playing the middle. That's not good. So we should try to get one of them voted out. I agree, Franny. That's great. She's thinking ahead. But I also agree with Danny here that this wasn't the right time. I truly believe they do need to try to flush the advantages and take out a Ratu here. So I'm glad that Franny didn't get her way.
Yeah, I think now that there's only two Ratu members, though, I'm interested to see how it goes as far as like, are they going to still be a unit of two and they are kind of become the swing votes, or are they going to separate, become free agents? Like, especially, I'm just confused. What's going to be the direction now that it's only two Ratu left?
Which is interesting because I do think like if Jam, Carolyn, Carson can stay in the middle next week, they would flip and work with Lauren and Jamie to make a five and then to target probably like Danny. They even wanted to split the votes between Danny and Heidi this time, so I could easily see them try to do something like that next week. But since Franny is on that minority side, that's potentially, going to get swung and targeted at, maybe Franny tries to get numbers to try to target the swing votes in Jam and Carolyn, which could be very interesting because like Heidi's idol could protect one of those three, Carolyn's idol could protect her, Jam or Carson, which would be very fascinating if we've got like, okay, I don't think another Ratu would go home next week because they have two left. I think it's going to swing and they're going to try to vote out one of the other groups of three.
It's interesting though because they're not really at a place where they can split votes very easily anymore,
Yeah.
because there's 8 of them and 2-3-3 with two idols in play. It's like, how do you even split votes to make sure that someone you want to go home is still going home? Like, just have everyone vote one person and hope that, you can. That would actually be interesting, like having people vote, like vote for the person who's after you alphabetically, and then on the revote after people have played idols, that's when you guys can kind of communicate like, this is our ranking of who we would like to go home. But obviously that would take a lot of cooperation and probably wouldn't work. But
I'm surprised though that Carson would be okay with Kane going home. We saw Carson and Kane bond over like their nerdy things. I thought maybe a better move for Carson here would try to get Jamie or Lauren out since we haven't seen them as close as we've seen Carson and Kane to be. So it is interesting that Carson would be willing to vote out like a fellow nerd bro. I guess, lose the battle to win the war. I guess we'll see how this plays out. But I'd be like, oh, I'd low key want to keep my piece on the board, but get rid of another person on Ratu that I'm less close with.
I mean, it could be that they like share a personal closeness, but not a game closeness. I think we've heard people talk about how, like, oh yeah, this person is my friend, but I never worked with them in the game because it just never made sense for us to work together. So it might be that kind of thing where Carson's like, yeah, I like Kane, but I'm never going to work with Kane. So it's not worth rocking the boat to try and change the vote if I'm not going to work with Kane either way.
Yeah, and it's just weird, I guess, with the editing, like you were saying earlier, we're not sure what some people's roles are. And I feel like it's mostly women that we're confused about. I feel like Jamie, I'm like, okay. Lauren, I'm like, okay. And then Heidi, I'm like, okay. Like, what are these people's roles in the game? Are they making moves? Are they thinking? Or like, what is happening with them? Which sort of sucks. I'm like, okay, why is it these women that maybe are under edited or we're sort of confused what their placement is?
I mean, I can tell you why, but
But do you feel similarly about those three?
yeah, because I don't know. I feel like Kane was the only guy left standing who we didn't really know a ton about because his only personality trait was D&D. But I feel like all of the guys who are left, which I guess is just Carson, Danny, and Jam Jam now.
Yeah.
But it's like all of those are pretty well developed characters or well developed players. Where, we know Jam Jam is the godfather. We know Carson is like the nerdy guy who's good at puzzles and also trying to like eat his rice. We know Danny is like big guy into big guys. So
Yeah, I guess we'll see in the coming weeks, like if these women get fleshed out a little bit more, or like, are they just going to get voted out easily? And that's why we haven't really seen too much of them, like strategically wise, or even like personally wise. Like, okay, are they married? Do they have kids? Like that. guess we know Lauren has a kid when she mentioned it once, but like, I'm like, I do not know any personality traits about you people.
It's really weird because this season there was a man medevaced, 4 women voted out, a man medevaced, or I guess technically Matthew quit, but whatever. A man who left the game not getting voted out, and then 4 men voted out. So it's like, is someone going to have a health crisis and then 4 women are going to be voted out again? I'm curious.
So, tribal council, we get some movement. People are standing up, leaving their seats, and Jam Jam, I liked it. It was like meta, sort of. Okay, calling out the edit, wishing there was subtitles. That's funny. Glad we do get subtitles now with tribal council whispers rather than just like pss, 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 happening over in the corner and we stare at people looking at them. I'm like, okay, glad that we actually get subtitles now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when subtitles make the difference in understanding.
So it's a majority split vote between Kane and Heidi, where Kane gets voted out with Jamie's fake real idol, real fake idol. I'm excited to see Jamie's reaction next week.
Yeah, me too. I think she might like freak out, and that would be fun.
Yeah, because I feel like from everything we've seen of Jamie, she's always very like upbeat, happy, the whole manifestation, everything is good luck, good vibes for me. This realization that her real fake idol got voted out, is she going to show a different kind of emotion here?
Yeah, yeah. I think earlier in the season she was called neurotic, I think. So I think we could definitely see the return of that.
So I'm excited to see how this all plays out. I feel like final 8 next week. So there is no more do or die twist, but they might do something stupid again
Please.
at final 8. We'll see. Hopefully it's just a regular tribal council.
Yeah. I love regular tribal councils, especially because right now we have an interesting setup with the 3-2-2.
Yeah, so let us know your thoughts in the comments below about this episode. Did you like this episode? Did you dislike this episode? Do you think that Jamie can bring up her fake real idol at Final Tribal Council and have it be something that could be on her resume? Did you agree with Danny not wanting people to sit out or not? Definitely let us know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you all next week.